Hey,
Hello,
we're back.
we are back. So yes, one of the things that often people ask a lot of questions about is watering.
Yeah.
How do you cope with watering? What do you do? What kinds of water and stuff like that. So today we're gonna delve into a little bit more about the watering side of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go because I think you have um, lots of different kinds of plants, and you probably can tell us a little bit more.
I think that's something about watering is like how big your collection is. When you only have 3 houseplants, it's okay. You can adjust your watering to the plant. But once you start to have like 200, 400, it's better to have like a way to fit your plants into your watering routine.
Yeah,
For me,
definitely.
it was that I water every day. So I have a way that uh, the plants that need it every day, they are okay, and the plants that wouldn't need, I grow them in a way that actually after one day they dry already. So I water them again, and
The kind of substrate
yeah,
that you use,
so I
you
don't have
adjust
to like reflect about it. I just go every evening after work. I spray everything down, and that's the way. The green wall is automatically what
Yes,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't have to. But for the other plants, I just spray everything every
Right.
day, and that's the way.
Because
So
that's what I do too as
yeah.
well. I grow my aeroids or most of my plants in very very loose soil.
Yeah.
They would dry out. I mean, my potted soil itself, I would say between 5 to 7 days. That's very very quick draining.
Yeah.
And then most of them I just grow them in moss, and I just see how
Yeah.
crispy they are on the top. You know, the first 1 inch or something, when it gets extremely crispy.
Yeah.
Then I'll water it through again. And actually, one of the I have a good tip for you guys is that when you're watering moss, very often people go, oh, if I water it, won't it be like just soggy, right? This whole pot soggy. So what I do is I water around the pot, and I make sure to water it against the wall of the pot.
Yeah.
And for me, obviously, I have clear pots, so this is a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that way, what I do is I water around the pot, and so the drier moss in the center will also absorb a little bit, but not so much that is the whole pot of moss which is soggy.
Yeah.
I think that is a good watering tip for people who go,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm an over waterer. You can still
Okay.
water it, just water around, the
Yeah.
perimeter or whatever you call it around the pot.
And then you do it enough that it wicks into the heart of
Exactly, and just enough, and this is like happening through capillary rather than forcing amount of water through it. This is something I've been doing.
But I guess with that method, you would have to be careful that if one pot really dries out completely, you still have to rehydrate the whole medium, and then you can start again. Because you maybe noticed sphagnum moss one is really dry.
It's very dry.
Almost like hydrophobic. It's hard. It's harder to get it wet again, right? Yeah.
I think this is really, really hard. And a friend of mine, he has a really good way of watering, which is you have to know your plants so well, you know how heavy the pots are.
Yeah.
And when you pick them up, you kind of know actually, do they need watering or not? And very often the ones that we don't need watering is the ones which are still quite heavy. And what I watch very much when I water is the color of the bark.
Yeah.
They change
course.
quite drastically.
And the weight of the pot when you pick a pot.
Exactly.
That's all like little tips. Something that's really important also is the quality of the water or the kind of water you use.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess like the newbie houseplant person just use tap water. And I think this is important when you want to be serious in the hobby to first know if your tap water is suitable. Because it depends where you are. The biggest problem you get in tap water is either chlorine.
Yeah.
A lot of plants, they're quite sensitive to that. And limestone, of course.
Yes, yeah.
Limestone in being that it's dissolved salt in the water, in tap water, and it's quite alkaline, so it changes the pH of the medium. And then it's also, when it builds up, it makes like whole crusts and stuff around things in the pot, or like when you have clay pots and there is like that white residue that grow outside.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is something I use personally, distilled water. I don't know about you.
At the moment, well, so I have been with my old place, I've been using the water from the dehumidifier. And it is important, and I tested it out. I have have
TDS meter is a really
exactly
tool. Get one.
Yeah, so
it's not expensive.
Exactly, and I have one from Xiaomi. Actually, they are really good. They're not expensive at all. You stick it in, you see how much
dissolved salt
you have in there, or dissolved minerals, right? Period. And that way, that's good. I've been using that for a long time, and it's quite pH neutral. I use this pH strips to test it. But now I decided, because the collection is getting so big, I have installed a small little RO system. It was for me about less than 100 Swiss francs. Probably about $100 or a little bit less.
I actually have a distiller that I bought on Amazon for around also, $50 it was, and it's still cheaper for me than going to buy the water in the stores. Plus, when you buy water, you have to bring it home. It's quite heavy.
You have all this plastic as well,
exactly.
Right?
I produce my own water, and it's right enough for the size of my collection. Well, I don't size quite a lot, of course.
How can you tell us a little bit about this distiller that you have?
Yeah, it's I think it's a 4-liter capacity. You put the water in, then you plug it in, and it's actually boiling the water inside, like heating the water, and of course, when you heat the water, the vapor goes up, but the salts remain. And then there is a cooler in a little pipe, and then the condensed cool water runs out of the distiller, and then what you get is basically like pure water. So I use that. Of course, you cannot use only distilled water. You have to use fertilizer then. But this is a topic we will get maybe later.
But and we will afterwards as well. I will link my RO system, and maybe Dimi can also link the system that he uses. And then you can compare for yourself a little bit. I think there is also, for us, it's also important to work a little bit on a budget. We value quality, but at the same time, the plant hobby gets
costly. We're not millionaire yet.
Exactly. And so it gets costly, and we need to always keep the costs down. So I think definitely there is a lot of different options. And as I said, if you maybe use a dehumidifier, I also had a little hack of how to, and I don't know whether you should be doing that, but I drilled a hole in the dehumidifier and piped the water out. And this is how I reuse the water. And I think that's a great thing.
Then a great way also is to collect rainwater, of course, if
you
can.
Of course, that's also something I did.
Also there you have to be a little bit careful. I think for most plants it's okay, but for really sensitive ones, like if you live in an urban area with a lot of industry, then of course the water is gonna be a little bit polluted. It can be quite acidic, even though it's pure. So with rainwater you have to be just a tiny bit more careful than just plain distilled water.
We're very, very lucky. Obviously, we live in Switzerland, and water is very, very clean.
It's not always easy to collect it when you live in a flat, actually. But
if you have a balcony, exactly.
It's free water.
Exactly. And I've seen some systems which is really, really cool. So I think definitely there is many, many avenues, and there are some plants, and I think Dimi grows some of them as well. I have some ferns as well, which they need a little bit more, what do you call that? Calcium. And they grow on rocks and things like that, and so.
But I prefer usually adding that the way I fertilize than using the plain water.
So that's like a controlled way.
You never know what else. Like for example, my house, I know we have because the residue in the distiller is red, so it means there is a lot of dissolved iron there. And although iron is good in small quantities, when it's too much, it can also stunt plants development. Like there are plants that grow in really iron-rich soils in some volcanic island, but this is a separate, special set of plants. So I guess I prefer to have, to know that my water is pure and start from zero, and then you add the things inside, so you know exactly what you add. And also for that, I went the easy way, but we're gonna talk about that when we talk about fertilizer.
Exactly. So we will get to that.
Exactly. Yeah.